Hi, this is Rick for EDU Mobile Academy. Now we're going to, before we have a demo on our WatchKit demo, we will talk a little bit about how the interface connects to the WatchKit app. So here we go. Every scene in a WatchKit storyboard has a corresponding WK interface controller. This is analogous to the UI view controller in a regular iPhone app or an iOS app. So WK interface controller is the UI view controller for a WatchKit scene, and the binding between the scene and the interface controller occurs in the same place as it does in standard iOS development. It occurs in the identity inspector. I've included a picture here to remind you of where that happens. So we have the identity inspector, the third icon in a WatchKit storyboard. It's a little bit different in a standard iOS storyboard, but we just insert the name of the class that we want to back this particular storyboard scene. In this case, my class was interface controller. So it is a WK interface controller, not a UI view controller. But that's the only difference in the storyboard scene. So let's go on. Every control in a WatchKit scene is named WK interface name. Then the name is whatever it is. So we have WK interface label, interface button, interface switch. Instead of these being named UI label, UI button, UI switch, they're named WK interface label, button, switch, and so forth. So a label is just what we expect. It's a passive control that displays text to the user. Now we can send text from the WK interface and change the text in a label just as we might from a view controller. WK interface button is an active control that responds to touch events by executing an action method. WK interface switch is an active control that stores a true-false value, and we can also respond to a change in that true-false value. WK interface slider is just like a slider. It's an active control that allows the user to set one value in a range of values by sliding the bar of the thumb of the control, as it's called. Then we have a date. WK interface date displays the current date. WK interface timer is a countdown timer. So we can set a particular time at which we want to trigger some event, or we can just say I want to count down for 10 minutes or something like that. An image is an image. WK interface image, however, is a static image. We can also display something like an animated GIF in a WK interface image. Map is a kind of control of, just like a UI map or a MapKit map, it displays the user's current location by default. We can also use the WK interface map API to define place marks to display a particular other place that we want the user to see. A separator separates controls visually, so it's a bar or a line, a horizontal line across the screen of the watch. Now, there are some collection controls, as you might expect. WK interface group groups multiple controls into a single control group. WK's interface menu groups something called WK's interface menu items. So interface menu is kind of an interface group that can only hold menu items, where each WK interface menu item is an active control like a button. It executes an action method when it is pressed, so we can have menus as well. And then finally, WK interface table displays a list of items where the row data is provided dynamically through the WK interface table API. And in further course units here, we will see tables and maps and groups and menus and menu items and so forth. But for now, in the next demo, in this unit, we are only concentrating on a text view and a button and displaying Hello Watch. So I want to kind of give the context for where we're going. So how do we declare outlet properties? Now, outlet properties are declared in the WK interface controller class for the WatchKit scene in which they're located. And this is exactly the same as we do in standard iOS 8 development, except for one thing. The WatchKit scene is in the WatchKit app section, whereas the WK interface controller is in the WatchKit extension section of your app. So the WatchKit scene is running on the watch, or is displayed on the watch. The WK interface controller is running on the phone. So that's the only difference. And really, as we're developing, that difference needs to be kept in mind, but it's not that big a deal, or it's not that difficult to get used to. So in Swift, we would declare an outlet property just as we would in Swift for iOS 8 outlets, IB outlet var, my label, and then WK interface label. And usually this is going to be an explicitly unwrapped optional with a bang. Now in Objective-C, if you're still coding in Objective-C, you declare at property, and then of course it's a label, it's an interface control, so it should be weak and non-atomic, and then use IB outlet, and then whatever the name of the control is, and then or whatever the class of the control is, and then star my label with a semicolon. So I've given both examples both in Swift and Objective-C for declaring outlet properties, and I also do this for action methods. WK interface button is a little bit different than UI button. With UI button, we get back sender, which is either going to be any object in Swift, or it's going to be the UI button itself. Here we do not. So IB action func button action with no arguments. In Objective-C, -IB action button action. A switch gives us back whether or not the switch is on. Actually, it gives us a Boolean value called on. So IB action func switch action on as bool, or an Objective-C -IB action switch action bool on. An interface slider gives us back the value as a float, and a interface menu item doesn't give us a property to deal with. We have it's the same as a button. We have pressed it, and then we want to do something as a result of that menu item being pressed. So now our names of these, button action, switch action, slider action, menu item action, can of course be any function names or method names that we want to use here. Finally, some final thoughts before we get to the demo. Outlets and actions are going to be wired up to controls in a scene in the same way that they are in standard iOS development. The WK interface controllers are a part of the WatchKit extension group, and they reside on the iPhone, whereas the storyboard and the necessary resource files, only the storyboard and the necessary resource files, are part of the WatchKit app group. Thank you very much.